Well, listeners, Indonesia and Sri Lanka have built their cooperation since 1950s, and the two countries, even today, have developed their cooperation into a very fantastic reach. And today, here in our studio, we have invited Sri Lankan Ambassador to Indonesia, Her Excellency Mrs. Yasoja Gunasekara. How are you, Your Excellency?
Keeping very well.
And to know, it is a surprise for me that she's just about 7 months here in Indonesia, so
7
just
months.
still new here in Indonesia, but she has traveled a lot. So to know about the two countries' relationship, here is our interview with Her Excellency Yasoja Gunasekara. Hello. So, since you just about 7 months here in Indonesia, so what is your expressions or impressions about Indonesia?
Dr. Pane, first and foremost, Ayubowan. That's how we say hello.
Hello.
And it means long life in my language, Sinhala. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with you today. So the first thing I want to stress is that from the time I arrived here, I felt as if I'm at home. Because actually we're your next door neighbor.
Yes.
On the western side, Indonesia and Sri Lanka are right next to each other. There's nothing between us other than the Indian Ocean. So therefore, when you travel around the country, there are so many places where I sometimes forget that I'm not in Sri Lanka. I remember going to Banyuwangi and you're surrounded by rice fields and the sea and coconut trees, and for a minute I thought I was in Sri Lanka. Same thing happened when we were in Nias. We were doing a beautiful drive down the coast, and you had the sea and you had coconut trees, and for a moment I forgot I was not in Sri Lanka. So this country is so much like home to me, and we have a lot of Indonesian influences in Sri Lanka. When I've lived here, the more I travel, the more I realize the influences from Indonesia, starting with the fact that we have an Indonesian community in Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan Malays originally came from here, because when your kings were exiled from Batavia, they were sent to Sri Lanka.
So Batavia is a very long time ago, right?
We have had thousands of years of interaction.
Yes.
And we have so many civilizational and cultural connections. And you can see it in the food, in the language. I'll give you an example of the language.
Yes.
You say lampu.
Lampu, yes.
We say lampu.
For the light.
We
yeah.
say lampu too.
Really?
You say sapatu. We say sapatu too. You say istri. We say istri too.
Istri for wife.
For wife, we say istri for wife too.
Whoa.
You say bonchi. We say bunchi.
Bunchi.
We say bonchi. So, you know, the languages are so similar. And when it comes to foods, you know, I went to Banyuwangi and there was a particular food that was given for us to taste. And when I tasted that, that's just like what we have in Sri Lanka, something that we have on our New Year table. Your milk rice, we have the same thing on our New Year table. So my impression of Indonesia has been that, of course, it's such a friendly country, such a lovely quality of life, such an interesting country, and at the same time, so similar to my country.
Okay.
It's really
So,
interesting.
from your explanation, Your Excellency, it seems to be that we are not just a neighbor. We are just not neighbors, but we are brothers and sisters, I think.
Exactly.
So, how do you say?
We have a family relationship.
Yes.
We have been part of the great group of people in Asia who have worked together towards the non-aligned movement. Of course, in 1955,
Yes.
Indonesia and Sri Lanka worked together as part of the Asian powers on the non-aligned movement. We have interacted with each other over the centuries on the ancient trading routes, because Sri Lanka sits right in the center of the Indian Ocean,
Yes.
where east meets west. It always has been a trade hub as a
Okay.
result.
So, as brothers and sisters, so how do you assess that the development of our corporations, which has been built since as you mentioned, that Batavia era means that hundreds or maybe 1,000 years ago. So how is it going on now, our cooperation?
Well, we had two important state visits. In 2017, President Sirisena, the former president of Sri Lanka, paid a state visit to Indonesia. And in 2018, President Widodo started his important South Asian tour in Sri Lanka. So those two state visits helped to really reinvigorate our relationship. It's multidimensional. We have so many different aspects of cooperation, including, of course, the maritime, because we share the Indian Ocean, defense, political, of course, economic, agricultural and fisheries, education and culture, IT. We have a lot of cooperation. There's a lot of potential, of course, to improve this cooperation still more. The cooperation really has not optimized what we can do as two neighboring countries that have known each other for centuries.
Okay, so in terms of economic cooperation, so how do you assess the cooperation between the Indonesia and then Sri Lanka? If I'm not mistaken, in terms of trade or industry, in 2018. Indonesia exported train cars to Sri Lanka and also some clothes, textiles products. So how this growing at this time?
Well, we're very happy that Indonesia has entered the transportation sector in Sri Lanka. We'd like a lot more similar cooperation between Indonesia and Sri Lanka. We would like Indonesians to get more interested in purchasing some of our premium export products. We have a lot of well-known, world-renowned products such as the Ceylon tea, the gems and jewelry products, including the famous blue sapphire. We have processed food products. We have very successful biscuit and chocolate brands. We have various products that are unique to Sri Lanka, like the kaju nut and the cinnamon. We have seafood. Our seafood is very popular in other countries in Southeast Asia, like Singapore, and we're exporting a lot of crab to Singapore. We have a variety of IT products now. Sri Lanka is very well known in the IT sector. So there's so much that we can do. We'd like a lot more business-to-business cooperation between the two countries. Both the governments have made it clear, both the leaders have made it clear that the businessmen of the two communities could work together so much more closely to explore the possibilities. And of course, we actually have investment from both countries. We have Kalbe Pharma in Sri Lanka, amongst other Indonesian companies. We have a number of top Sri Lankan companies that have invested here and created a large number of jobs here, like Haley's and Good Hope and Mars. Mars does apparel. Haley's is in both logistics and in coconut products. And Good Hope is in plantations. They've created a number of jobs in this country, hundreds of jobs in this country. So there is a lot more interest in investing in Indonesia, given how fast this economy is growing. A lot of Sri Lankan companies have understood that this is a very attractive place to be. And we hope more people from Indonesia will come and understand that Sri Lanka is going to be the next South Asian hub of business. And we would like people to come to Sri Lanka and explore the possibilities.
So, talking about investors, Indonesian investors who wants to invest in Sri Lanka. So, what sectors that is has or have opportunities for them in Sri Lanka?
Well, for instance, we have the Colombo Port City that is now coming up. It's almost completed. There are huge potential in real estate there. It's going to be the business hub of South Asia. So it's adjacent to the port of Colombo. There's going to be opportunities in the logistics area. Colombo Port, incidentally, is the number one hub of South Asia in terms of marine transportation. It's the only commercial deep sea port in South Asia. So the port is there. You have logistics possibilities. You have opportunities in manufacturing. We have export processing zones around the country. And Sri Lanka has very skilled labor. We also can do joint ventures between Sri Lankan companies and Indonesian companies. You could be manufacturing in Sri Lanka, mainly products which involved skilled workers. You could be manufacturing for the South Asian market. We have a free trade agreement with India. We have a preferential trading agreement with Pakistan. And we also have a free trade agreement with Singapore.
But not in Indonesia.
Hopefully that will happen soon. This is something that both the leaders have been talking about, a free trade agreement or maybe initially a preferential trading agreement.
Yeah.
We're very interested in engaging with Indonesia on this. So this is something in the pipeline.
Okay.
So keep an eye on that story.
I will keep an eye on it. So, back to the similarities that we have, Indonesia and Sri Lanka that you just mentioned, like you have been to Nias, to Banyuwangi, to Bali. That those are places that are very interesting to visit here in Indonesia. I mean, the tourism spots in Indonesia. So, what about the possibility of cooperation in tourism sector for both countries, since you know that it is a trend now for Indonesian people, maybe since 2 years ago, to travel abroad to foreign countries. So what is the opportunity for cooperation in tourism sector?
We would love more tourism from Indonesia to Sri Lanka. We have daily flights by Sri Lankan Airlines, the national airliner of Sri Lanka. So there's a direct flight daily.
Direct flight, okay.
And basically it only takes 4 hours to go from Jakarta to Colombo.
Yes.
We have a free visa on arrival for Indonesians traveling to Sri Lanka. So there's no hassle factor when it comes to the visa. And we have so much that you would find interesting to see. We have 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So those include some of our ancient cities. We have a rock fortress. We have the oldest Dutch fort in South Asia. We have our natural heritage. Of course, Sri Lanka is very rich in wildlife. We have the largest mammal on the earth, the elephant, and the largest mammal in the sea, the blue whale. Both can be found in Sri Lanka. And we've just rediscovered that we have the black leopard. We thought it was extinct, but recently a family of black leopards had been discovered. So there are wildlife parks all around the country, and that's something that we love as Sri Lankans. Another thing we love is to go to the tea plantations. We have beautiful tea plantations all around the country, but of course the most beautiful ones are in the higher regions where you have very different climate. It's a little cooler, and you have waterfalls. Sri Lanka is a very green island. That's something that a lot of Sri Lankans like to do, go to the tea country. We also have, of course, like in Jakarta, we have a nice food scene. Sri Lankan food is becoming very popular. So lots of restaurants in Colombo and around the country. And people are actually coming to Sri Lanka from various parts of the world just to enjoy the food. For instance, the egg hopper, which is something that a lot of people say is their favorite food in Sri Lanka, including Richard Quest from CNN, who was visiting Sri Lanka.
What is it like?
It's like a pancake, but it's shaped like a bowl, and you have a half-cooked egg in the middle, semi-boiled, and it's really yummy. You eat it with your hands. You also have things like kottu roti, which is basically a street food. It's like a sort of a mee goreng. You have thick noodles, but it's made out of paratha. So you just chop a paratha into noodles, and you add some vegetables, maybe some meat, some prawns, some sauce and some spices, and they chop it up on the roadside fresh, and they give it to you, and it's something very, very popular. Some of the restaurants here now have started doing kottu roti as well.
So talking about the places to visit in Sri Lanka, are there most of them are around Colombo, or they have to go out of Colombo?
Well, Colombo itself, of course, is a very vibrant city, but you need to travel a little bit to see the different sites we have. However, Sri Lanka has good infrastructure, and it's a somewhat small island, so it's very easy in the course of, say, a week, if you visit Sri Lanka for a week, to cover various different aspects of our diverse country. You can go to the cultural triangle, which is where about 3 of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites are, in about 3 hours, 5 hours, depending on traffic. And of course, the city of Kandy is just about 3 hours from Colombo. That's very popular for the Temple of the Tooth, and of course, tea plantations, cooler climate. The city of Galle with the Southern Expressway is only 1 hour now from Colombo. So you can go see the beautiful fort there, do some whale watching, which is just a little further down, and about another half an hour from Galle. The wildlife parks are in various parts of the island. Maybe you need to be on the road for about 3 hours from the capital to see the wildlife.
Not too far, I think.
Not too far. Nothing is too far. You'd need to, plan your itinerary before you go there, so that you relax a little bit as well. I mean, you can always go back. You don't have to cover everything in one trip, and you will go back. I think people who have experienced Sri Lanka will always go back.
Okay, so I think I have to make a plan to visit Sri Lanka.
I hope you do, Pane. I'm sure you would enjoy it.
Okay, Ambassador Yasoja, so since you are still 7 months here, so I believe that there is still a very long day for you to stay here in Indonesia. So what is your target, or just say your plan for the next say years of your stay here in Indonesia?
I would like to try and do more on the business-to-business cooperation.
Business-to-business
cooperation. I want to encourage more trade delegations to visit the two countries, for business people to visit each other's trade fairs and participate in trade fairs. I would like to try and encourage more joint ventures between our two countries, more forms of economic cooperation, because both our governments, both the Indonesian leaders as well as the Sri Lankan leaders, are encouraging more economic cooperation, because that is cooperation that the people of the countries can benefit from. And there is huge potential for economic cooperation between our two countries. So that's my primary focus. But I would like to create more people-to-people contact. I want the people of Indonesia and the people of Sri Lanka to know each other better. So the embassy has been doing a lot of people-to-people diplomacy events. We've been reaching out to millennials mainly at this stage, inviting them to the embassy, encouraging them to learn a little bit about Sri Lanka and do some fun activities at the same time. We did a photo exhibition at the National Library in December for about a week, which was very successful. Give people a chance to just know something about your next door neighbor on the west. And when we interacted with the general public, they were interested in learning something about our country. So I want to do more reaching out to people from different walks of life in Indonesia, from the higher levels to the people on the street. I want them to know our country. I want them to have a positive impression of us. And I think when you know each other better, then the cooperation will flow.
Yes.
We should be so much closer to each other than we currently are, given the fact that we are neighbors and we are relatives, as we discussed earlier, and we have cooperated with each other for thousands of years as two ancient civilizations.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. So I think before we come to the end of this interview, I would like you to make just a kind of a closing statement that you want to say to our Indonesian people or the people of Sri Lanka, to the camera.
Thank you very much. So basically, I think that Indonesia is a wonderful country to live in. I'm so happy to be posted here. This is a country which has been a long-time friend of Sri Lanka's. We are relations. We have a Sri Lankan Malay community which originated from Indonesia. We have been connected to each other on the ancient trading routes. For instance, the cinnamon route, which started in Indonesia, connected to Sri Lanka and to East Africa. In the modern age, there's so much more that we can be doing in terms of economic cooperation with each other. And I would love more Indonesian people to come and visit Sri Lanka. It's a beautiful country. It's Lonely Planet's best destination in 2019. I think it was the best warm weather destination as far as the USA Today was concerned. It's got a lot of other international acclaim, but when you go there, you will understand what the magic of Sri Lanka is. And I strongly recommend Sri Lankans to come and visit this beautiful country. There's a lot of diversity here, way beyond Bali. I think the government here is promoting 10 Balis. And if you come here, you will understand that Bali is fantastic. There are also so many other great places to visit. So looking forward to a lot more people-to-people contact between our two friendly countries.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you, Your Excellency.
very much.
Well, listeners, that was my interview with Her Excellency Mrs. Yasoja Gunasekara, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to Indonesia. I hope that what we are discussing today will be beneficial for both countries. I'm Daulat Pane. See you next time.